Welcome to Global Recorder, the daily YouTube Views magazine. This is the second edition of Global Recorder dated April 2, 2018. This bulletin has 5 commentaries on the following topics. The Supreme Court of India will examine the polygamy in Muslim marriage. Why BJP wants simultaneous polls in the country? Fake news will just get worse. India and Pakistan should normalize their relations. India and Russia are drifting apart. In the end, there is a good news, that India has taken a big step towards launching the second moon mission this year, and 2 lines of poetry in the end. Our first topic today is that the Supreme Court of India will examine polygamy in Muslim marriage.
The court will look into the constitutional validity of several practices of Muslim marriage. 7 months after it declared instant triple talaq unconstitutional, the Supreme Court of India on March 26, 2018 decided to look into the constitutional validity of the prevalent practices of polygamy, nikah halala, nikah mutah and nikah masyar in the Muslim community. A bench, headed by Chief Justice Deepak Misra, issued notices to the Centre and the Law Ministry on a bunch of petitions that have challenged the practices, claiming they degrade women to a position inferior to that of men. The bench will also decide whether certain sections of the Muslim Personal Law, Shariat, Application Act go against the Constitution. The petition said the Muslim Personal Law allows a man to marry up to 4 wives, which it said treats women as men's chattel, and reduces their status to an object of desire to be possessed by men. Contending that the practice offends the core ideal of equality of status, the petitioner sought to quash polygamy. Another plea was made by a Delhi woman against the Muslim Personal Law. It has contended that the prevalent Muslim Personal Law rendered Section 494 of IPC, which prescribes punishment for marrying again during lifetime of husband or wife, as inapplicable. Her plea also claimed that the Muslim wife does not have avenue to complain against her husband for the offense of bigamy. Delhi BJP leader Ashwini Kumar Upadhyay has also filed a plea seeking to ban polygamy and nikah halala. The Supreme Court's decision to examine the validity of the practice of polygamy in certain forms of marriage like nikah halala and nikah mutah has been welcomed by women organizations as progressive and a step forward to secure the rights of many Muslim women suffering in silence. Meanwhile, All India Muslim Personal Law Board member SQR Ilyas said he did not see any need for the matter to be put through a scrutiny by the Supreme Court, for Islam does not allow nikah halala the way it is being interpreted and practiced incorrectly by people. It should be mentioned that courts since 1951 have kept away from personal law reform, arguing that personal law was not amenable to a writ jurisdiction. The Bombay HC was faced with a writ challenge to the Islamic practice of polygamy as being discriminatory under Articles 14 and 15. The Bombay High Court held that matters of marriage were covered under the customs as per the personal law of the Muslims, which was not law as defined under Article 13. Because only law could be struck down in a writ challenge, therefore, the Shariat practice was intact. The recent triple talaq judgment in Sher Bano vs. Government of India was much celebrated across the nation. It gave most a sense of victory. But 2 Justices Karan Nadsir made it clear that personal law had the same stature as fundamental rights, therefore strengthening the 1951 ruling. It means personal law remained immune to judicial action.
Our second topic is that why BJP wants simultaneous polls in the country?
The BJP had promised in its election manifesto of 2014 to pave the ground for holding Lok Sabha and Assembly elections simultaneously. Holding simultaneous Assembly and Lok Sabha polls is not a new idea. Simultaneous elections were held from the first general elections in 1951-52 till 1967. The disruption came when assemblies and the Lok Sabha were dissolved prematurely in 1970. The Election Commission, the Law Commission and the relevant parliamentary standing committees have all recommended the simultaneous elections. The main argument in favor of holding simultaneous polls is that today, not just parliamentary and assembly but panchayat and municipal elections also take place according to their own cycles. All these elections are fought intensely. Most of the attention of the political leaders is concentrated towards the elections. The nation seems to be in a continuous election mode. Police and security forces also are always busy in election duty. But the arguments against holding simultaneous polls are also equally powerful. Elections are all about finding out the people's choice. And voters want different things from members of parliament, state legislators and local government leaders. Agendas and issues in all elections are different. It is not possible to fight all elections on the same agenda and the same set of issues. If all elections are held simultaneously, only the main and national themes will be paid attention. The local issues will be neglected. Many remedies have been suggested to mitigate the effects of simultaneous polls. If period of campaigning is reduced, some issues like cost and administrative distraction can be solved. In Europe, the election campaigns are not much visible. Posters and banners are few and there are no election rallies. Restrictions should be placed on campaigning by the Prime Minister, central ministers, the chief ministers and the state ministers. The prime ministers must not campaign in assembly elections. In the assembly elections, sometimes a party other than the party belonging to the prime minister wins the election and forms the government at the state level. In that case there is a possibility of animosity between the prime minister and the state government. The same is true for the central ministers. They also should not be allowed to campaign in the assembly elections. The chief minister should be allowed to campaign in the parliamentary and assembly elections in their own states only. The same law should be applied to the state ministers as well. If these ministers will have to campaign in all the elections, they will simply have no time to govern. Slogan like "One Nation, One Poll" are disturbing. This creates the impression that those who have objections to holding simultaneous polls are against the unity of the country. Many parties who are dominated by a single powerful leader support the idea of holding simultaneous polls. They think that a single powerful leader can ensure the victory of the party in parliamentary as well as state assembly elections. But this is not good for a healthy democracy. The main question is that what will happen in case a state government is dismissed or falls down before the completion of its term? Whether the central government will rule the state for the rest of the term. If such a thing happens, the federal structure of the country will become weak and may lead to the rise of regionalism and separatism. Therefore, the idea of one nation, one election is not a good idea.
Our third topic is that fake news will just get worse.
Now artificial intelligence will be used to prepare fake news.
Fake news has become a reality. What is worse, that the situation is going to become still worse. Now artificial intelligence will be used to prepare fake news. Recently Facebook was at the center of the fake news scandal. It was accused of failing to prevent fake news on its platform. It is said that the fake news was created by Russian operatives and the resulting fake information was spread across millions of people before the 2016 US presidential elections. Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, had earlier suggested that the company would be using artificial intelligence to spot fake news. But fake news is going to become more difficult to tackle. Fake news is going to become the biggest catalyst of events in future. This warning has come from an artificial intelligence expert who used to work for the Central Intelligence Agency of America. Sean Gowerly, founder and CEO, Primer, told a conference in San Francisco that the next generation of fake news will be empowered by artificial intelligence and will be far more sophisticated, and even more disastrous. Primer is a company that uses software to mine data sources and automatically generate reports for the CIA and other clients. Sean Gowerly is founder and CEO of Primer. Previously, he was CTO of Quid, an augmented intelligence company he co-founded in 2009. Prior to Quid, Gowerly worked on self-repairing nanocircuits at NASA Ames. He holds a PhD in physics from Oxford, where his research as a Rhodes Scholar focused on complex systems and the mathematical patterns underlying modern war. This research was published on the cover of Nature. He has served as a political advisor, briefed us@com at the Pentagon and addressed the United Nations in Vienna. He noted that the present type of fake news being created is relatively simple as they are human-crafted stories posted online. However, with technology that Primer has today, the artificial intelligence can be used to generate truly convincing fake stories, and that too automatically, and at a faster speed. Primer has created artificial intelligence that can automatically create stories from a database of information, without any human intervention. The fake stories and fake reports can be easily tailored to individual interests and carefully tested before being released, maximizing their impact. Millions of stories can be created in no time. The news can also be tested to see their traction. The tested stories can be multiplied within no time. The automation of the generation of fake news is going to make it very effective. The fake news is usually fed into the social networking platforms. The artificial intelligence can understand the network dynamics, as well as the mechanisms used to judge the popularity of content. This understanding will be used to amplify the effect of a post. The artificial intelligence will know where to inject the information to have the greatest effect. The artificial intelligence-powered fake news on the social media is a huge possibility and could turn out to be disastrous.
Our fourth topic is that India and Pakistan should normalize their relations.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi started his term as the Prime Minister of India by sending a strong message of friendship to the South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation Countries. He invited leaders of all these countries to New Delhi to his inaugural ceremony. But after some time, things started deteriorating for various reasons. Tendency to use foreign relations in the domestic elections increased in India. Then terrorist attack happened in Uri. It was followed by surgical strikes carried out by India across the lock in the Pakistani territory. But the BJP went to the town taking credit for the surgical strikes. Posters and billboards were put up everywhere in India declaring the victory of India over Pakistan. The BJP tried to take advantage of surgical strikes in elections. Some Indian and Pakistani TV channels seem to have taken the responsibility of straining the Indo-Pak relations over their shoulders. Earlier, while discussing about neighboring countries, some kind of sophisticated language was used. Now it is no longer the case. The TV anchors and panelists in various discussions routinely take extreme positions. Sometimes TV channels of the two countries organize panel discussions in which they routinely invite each other's retired military officers. Such discussions never contribute to the betterment or improvement of bilateral Indo-Pak relations. Both the countries must put some restrictions over such TV debates, particularly the participation of the retired military officers. In the meanwhile, the incidents of firing on the lock with Pakistan have continuously increased. In the state of Jammu and Kashmir, incidents of violence have gone up. Recently, both India and Pakistan have accused each other of harassing each other's diplomatic personnel. Several incidents of this kind are reported to have taken place in both the countries. The diplomatic personnel are protected under the 1961 Vienna Convention and harassing them is forbidden. Dealing with each other's spies also is an issue. The two countries have not yet decided that how to treat with the cause spies of each other. Both India and Pakistan claim that they do not carry out espionage in each other's countries. When their operatives get caught, they routinely feign ignorance, even though when released from the captor's custody, the former spies cross over to their own country to claim that they were indeed engaged in espionage on the other side. The spies are often subjected to the most inhumane forms of torture by the captors if they happen to get caught. It should be admitted and acknowledged that both the countries spy on each other. Espionage is very much part of statecraft that all modern states engage in, as do India and Pakistan. To claim otherwise is only laughable. The two countries must come to an understanding regarding manner of treatment with each other's caught spies. Those engaged in espionage should be expelled rather than tortured or killed. Even during the Cold War, the Soviet Union and the USA used to exchange spies. As recently as in 2010, Russia and the US exchanged spies in the city of Vienna. The state of communication between India and Pakistan is at its lowest ebb. The two countries must ensure that contact and dialogue between them is not disrupted under any circumstances. There must be a permanent mechanism for exchange of views and expression of grievances between the two countries. Stopping talking will never serve any purpose. India and Pakistan cannot go on not talking to each other indefinitely. The time has come that they start talking to each other and institute a permanent structure of mutual dialogue and exchange of views and expression of grievances.
Our final topic is that India and Russia are drifting apart.
The two countries have had close relations from the time of the Soviet Union, the USSR. India and Russia are old friends. India and the Soviet Union, USSR, have had a strong strategic, military, economic and diplomatic relationship. After the collapse of the USSR, Russia inherited the close relationship with India, while India improved its relations with the West. A cordial relationship with India that began in the 1950s represented the most successful of the Soviet attempts to foster closer relations with Third World countries. The Soviet Union supported Indian sovereignty over the disputed territory of the Kashmir region and over Portuguese coastal enclaves such as Goa. In 1965, the Soviet Union served successfully as peace broker between India and Pakistan after an Indian-Pakistani border war. In 1971, the former East Pakistan region initiated an effort to secede from its political union with West Pakistan. India supported the secession and, as a guarantee against possible Chinese entrance into the conflict on the side of West Pakistan, It signed with the Soviet Union the Indo-Soviet Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation in August 1971. In December, India entered the conflict and ensured the victory of the secessionists and the establishment of the new state of Bangladesh. The Soviet Union has been an important supplier of defense equipment for several decades. Russia 68%, USA 14% and Israel 7.2% are the major arms suppliers to India.
India and Russia have several major joint military programs including BrahMos cruise missile program, 5th generation fighter jet program, Sukhoi Su-30 MKI program, Ilyushin/HAL tactical transport aircraft, Ka-226T twin-engine utility helicopters, some frigates. Additionally, India has purchased/leased various military hardware from Russia.
Bilateral trade between the two countries in 2002 stood at $1.5 billion and increased by over 7 times to $11 billion in 2012. The two governments have set a bilateral trade target of $30 billion by 2025. In 2012, Gazprom Group and India's GAIL agreed to LNG shipments to India of 2.5 million tons a year for the period of 20 years. Indian oil companies have invested in the Russia's oil sector. A notable example is ONGC, which has invested over $8 billion with major stakes in oil fields such as Sakhalin-1. Kudankulam nuclear power project with 2 units of 1,000 megawatts each is a good example of Indo-Russian nuclear energy cooperation. Both sides have expressed interest in expanding cooperation in the energy sector. There is a long history of cooperation between the Soviet Union and India in space. Examples include Aryabhata, India's first satellite, which was named after an Indian astronomer of the same name. It was launched by the Soviet Union on April 19, 1975. In November 2007, the two countries signed an agreement on joint lunar exploration. Chandrayaan-2 is a joint lunar exploration mission of India and Russia. The mission is scheduled to be launched in 2018. The North-South Transport Corridor is the ship, rail, and road route for moving freight between India, Russia, Iran, Europe, and Central Asia. The route primarily involves moving freight from India, Iran, Azerbaijan and Russia via ship, rail and road. The objective of the corridor is to increase trade connectivity between major cities such as Mumbai, Moscow, Tehran, Baku, Bandar Abbas, Astrakhan, Bandar Ansali etc. Indo-Russian relations in the field of culture are historical. One of the first Russian visitors to India was Afanassy Nikitin, a merchant from Tver in Russia. His famous journey, 1466 to 1472, was documented in the book A Journey Beyond the Three Seas. The first Russian translation of the Bhagavad Gita was published in 1788 by decree on the orders of Catherine the Great. Traditionally, there has been strong collaboration in the field of cinema between India and Russia. Several generations of Russians grew up watching subtitled Indian films, mainly Bollywood films. Popular Indian films in the USSR included Awara, Bobby, Barood, Mamta, and Disco Dancer. Yoga in Russia has been growing and becoming increasingly popular since the 1980s, particularly in major cities and urban centers. But despite such extensive and deep relations between the two countries, Russia has started drifting apart from India. Its relations with China and Pakistan are increasing. China's warships conducted the first-ever joint war games with the Russian fleet in the Baltic Sea in 2017. Chinese President Xi Jinping visited Moscow where Putin decorated him with the Order of St. Andrew, Russia's highest state award. According to Chinese President Xi Jinping, Russia's relationship with China is at the best level in history. Xi has visited Moscow more often than any other capital since coming to power in 2012. India is also veering away from Russia and getting closer to the US. In view of the Western sanctions and US actions against Russia, it seems that perhaps Russia needs China more. For India, the real threat is a durable Russo-Chinese Pak Entente. Russia's decision to hold its first-ever joint military exercise with Pakistan, days after the Uri terror strike, rankled India to no end. Actually, Russia's relations with Pakistan have been looking up since the early 2000s. Many people point out that Russia has been acting in tandem with China to promote Pakistan's ambitions in Afghanistan. Russia is supporting the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, which passes through the Pak-occupied Kashmir. It is also engaging with the Pakistan-backed Taliban. The new Russia under Putin is not sure of Indian help in its fight against American power and hegemony, particularly in Asia. Similarly, the Russian silence on Doklam showed that India cannot have Russia any longer on its side to counterbalance China. Russia is a very different country today than it was in 2000 when Putin first became the president.
And now, the good news.
India has taken a big step towards launching the second moon mission this year.
The Indian Space Research Organisation, ISRO, has launched the GSAT-6A communication satellite using an indigenous cryogenic engine from the Satish Dhawan Space Center at Sriharikota. The GSAT-6A built by ISRO is intended to provide mobile communication services through multi-beam coverage. According to space scientists, cryogenic engines provide unprecedented thrust to GSLV rockets in their final stages while keeping fuel loads relatively low. Nearly 50% of the power for GSLV rockets as they push into space comes from the cryogenic stage. This launch has been billed as India's big step towards launching the moon mission. It is expected that the moon mission will be launched in the current year.
And, in the end, 2 lines of poetry translated from Urdu language.
The lamps of everyone will extinguish. The wind does not recognize anybody. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and share this video and make comments on it. Please also subscribe to our channel.